From Homedale to Salmon River, District 3 has several teams that don't always get their due. Stepping outside the shadows of the SIC, this is the Treasure Valley Prepcast with Logan Green.
That's right. Another edition of the Treasure Valley Prepcast coming at you here on IdahoSports.com, your weekly breakdown for the 3A, 2A, 1A happenings in District 3. Brandon Baney with Logan Green. Logan, speaking of happenings, what's a happening with you?
Oh, just nothing, and, nothing too exciting. I do have my kids, Owen's football is about to wrap up. I'm honestly a little excited about that. Sometimes you sign up to be a youth coach and you think, oh, this is going to be great. And then it takes a lot of your time. So, any coaches out there, I am coaching the lowest level of any. This is rec league flag football. That's a one game a week. But it's like, I'm looking at stuff during the week. There's a lot of work that goes involved into just the little stuff. And so to do it on a high school level, like, it does give me a new appreciation to what they're doing, right? That they're grinding all the time, trying to get their kids better, things like that. So, the Idaho Sports Little Giants did suffer defeat last week. We were 3-0. We did play. I don't know if we talked about. We played the Raiders, and it was 8-6. It was a struggle, but it was over here. It was when it was super windy. Like, nobody could do anything. We got beat 20-8. So it was good though. We learned there's some things. They were undefeated. We were undefeated. So it was a good matchup. They scored on two really long plays that. Outside those two plays, it was a tight game, but we learned from it, and we'll be ready for the playoffs, in case you were wondering.
Yes, and so this is something we've done the past couple of weeks here on the Treasure Valley Podcast. We get a little Giants update. Yep. Logan's coaching
Little Giants
in a Nampa City League, right?
Yeah, it's called Friday Night Flag. Okay. It's in Nampa. They play it over at the Karcher Church of the Nazarene, right over there. Right behind everything, right behind the Home Depot, all that stuff in Nampa. And it's great. It's been really good. Like, I think the league has like 8 or 9 teams just for first and second grade. I think there's like 50 teams overall. And I don't know, it's been good for at least my son to like get a taste of football, right? He can see what it's about. He can learn the movements of it. I'm just going to get a base learning of it. So, and he was unfortunate enough to get me as his coach, but
yeah. Well, I was going to say, following the loss, I'm sure you were like Nick Saban, sleeping on the couch, get up at 4 a.m. to start grinding.
I had those kids out there running gassers all morning long. Come on now. This is unacceptable. No, they just, like I said, they had 2 big plays where they snuck away, and that's what it is. We'll be ready.
Definitely.
The rematch.
For sure. The rematch. You'll have to let us know when that comes in the playoffs. Well, speaking of playoffs, we are getting rapidly towards the end of the regular season in the spring sports landscape. Wendell played Cole Valley Christian last night in baseball. That was the regular season finale for Wendell. Believe it or not, their districts start next week, which is crazy to think about. So we'll take a snapshot at kind of what's going on in baseball and softball as we kind of really get down to the final week. We're recording this on Thursday, the 28th. There's pretty much a week left, and then in 2 weeks it'll be districts.
Yeah, and Brandon, let's start right there, right? That Cole Valley Wendell game. Wendell ends up winning that game 2-3, but man, you look at the standings, right? Cole Valley Christian right now, they sit at 4-4 in the conference, 8-11 overall. So this is a team that we know is good, but they do have a losing record. But look what they did against Wendell. Wendell right now is sitting at 12-2. They do have a tie, but they lead their district right now over Declo 3-1 overall in the district, and only 2 losses on the season. And that's a team, that's a good Wendell team. And Cole Valley Christian almost beat them. And they're a middle-of-the-road District 3 WIC team. again, I mean, we've hammered on it all year long, but if that doesn't show you that this conference is deep, then I don't know what will, right? That you can go and take on the top team of another district that only has 2 losses, and you have 11, and you almost beat them. You can play the almost. It was a loss, right? It was a loss. At the end of the day, Wendell won. But you hung around in there, and you've seen that the conference kind of just turned brutal, right? I mean, you look at it, we were so high on Marsing, and they've hit a rough patch over the last couple of weeks. They've lost. They lost to Melba this week. They lost to New Plymouth, Nampa Christian, Orofino, and Cole Valley. They're on a losing streak right now, 5 losses in a row for the Huskies. But they're still going to be a factor. That's the thing. They've beaten some of those teams that they lost to, and those are all good teams. At the end of the day, anybody could come out of there, and we really kind of have neglected talking about New Plymouth, but there they are, also sitting at 3-5 and 8-11 overall, which is the same overall record as Cole Valley. I think you're going to see Nampa Christian in for sure, and you're going to see Melba, and then really, who knows? I think maybe outside of Vision Charter, that it would not surprise me if anybody else in this conference makes a step forward.
Yeah, well, and we talked about Vision Charter. Cole Valley only beat them 10-6 the last time they played. So, but you're right. Cole Valley kind of controls its own fate now because they're going to play New Plymouth Friday night. And then they have a non-conference game with Fruitland, which should be a good competition for them on Saturday. And then next Tuesday, it's their regular season finale at Marsing. And they already beat Marsing and New Plymouth this year. So they are in the driver's seat. If they beat both of those teams to close out the year, they will finish as the 3-seeded districts. And that's, you mentioned Nampa Christian and Melba probably going to get to state, and you're right. Well, there's a third bid from District 3 possibly on the line in the 2A state baseball tournament. Now, they would have to win a play-in game against the second-place team from District 1-2 up north, but I'll tell you, that district is down this year. Grangeville is the worst team in the league, and they're the defending champs, and Orofino and St. Mary's have kind of just beaten up on each other. So I think whoever takes third from District 3 has a great chance to get to state also.
Oh, yeah. No, I agree. I think that, at the end of the day, I mean, Orofino did beat they did beat Marsing a couple weeks ago pretty good, but I just think that the brutal schedule that these two have played, or that the district has played, is going to shake itself out. Like, I really think that at the end of the day, you're going to see whoever whoever that third team is. And I don't know who it's going to be. I just think whoever it is has a good shot at it. But at the, on the reverse, you look at the rest of the schedule here for Marsing. So Marsing plays Vision Charter. They play Wilder. So they have 2 winnable games left on their schedule to start. And then they have that game with Cole Valley. That's going to be a huge game. That Marsing Cole Valley game there on Tuesday, May 3rd. Like, that's going to be a big matchup to see who for positioning in the conference. Because like we said, right now they both sit. Well, Cole Valley's 4-4, Marsing's at 3-5, and New Plymouth right there at 3-5 as well. So big. You want that position, right? You want to, you can finish on top there. That's what you want to do.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting finish to the year for both of those teams. Marsing possibly could end up tying. If they beat Vision and Cole Valley beats New Plymouth, it sets up this showdown on Tuesday where if Marsing wins, they force a tie with Cole Valley for third, where they've both beaten each other. I don't know how that gets decided, but whoever gets that 3 seed avoids Nampa Christian. Like neither path is good, but I would rather take my chances against Melba than have to play Nampa Christian, right?
I mean, if you're Cole Valley, right? So they played Melba back on April 1st. It was a 1-3 game, and then they played them about a week ago, and it was 7-0. So a little bit more brutal there. But I mean, on the other side, Marsing, they beat Melba twice this year. They beat them in that tournament over in Payette 9-2. They beat them 6-4 in conference play, and then they lost to them Tuesday, only 5-7. So if you're Marsing, you say, my goodness, we can hang with Melba. We know we can. We've already beat them twice. We lost to them by 2, I don't think you don't want to be on the Nampa Christian side, right? That's what you don't want. So if you can get that and get that matchup, that's not a diss on Melba. That's more of a respect to Nampa Christian being, there's nothing else for us to say on that. If you want to hear about Nampa Christian baseball, listen to the last 30 Prepcasts, right? I mean,
right.
They're good. They're great. They're the team to beat this year and for the last decade. But right now, if you're a Melba or if you're a Marsing, New Plymouth, Coal Valley, you need that third spot. It's critical to get that third spot. And, you're going to be playing Melba for a bid to state, right? And if that can be your chance to state rather than the semifinals matchup with Coal Valley or with Nampa Christian, it makes a big difference. So.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, let's shift gears and look at what's going on in the 3A SRV, where Weiser still leading the way at 8-1, Fruitland is 7-2, and the Payette Pirates are 6-3. Payette is a team that's kind of emerged from the middle of the pack. Last night, Weiser and Fruitland met in a pitcher's duel, and Fruitland got out of there with a 1-0 win. So they handed Weiser their first conference loss of the year. And the first time Fruitland and Weiser played, Weiser only beat them by 1, 11-10. So a pair of 1-run games, a split between those two, but all of a sudden, here's Payette. And so for Fruitland, hey, it's nice. You beat Weiser, but guess what? Payette's only a game behind you in the loss column, and that's who they wrap up the regular season with on Monday night in Fruitland. If they lose that game, all of a sudden, Fruitland could slip to third, possibly on a tiebreaker.
Yeah, because you look at the schedule. I mean, Weiser right now, right? Weiser, they finish up. They've got Homedale that they're playing, which 4-5 so far for the Trojans. But then they have a non-conference game against Vail to round it out there. So, they're looking in good shape. But like you mentioned, Payette could sneak their way into that second spot if they're able to knock them off, right? They have a big game with Nampa Christian, but then that Fruitland game, we'll see how it goes. That one on May 2nd on Monday. So a big opportunity there for the Pirates.
Yeah, and they've kind of been all over the place this year. They lost to Fruitland by 10 the first time they played. They'll have the rematch. They lost to Weiser most recently 21-6, but the first time they played Weiser, they only lost by 3, 11-8. They beat Homedale twice, 6-1, 3-2. So they're a hard team to figure out, but I still do think that Weiser and Fruitland are the two best teams. But if Payette comes out and knocks off the Grizzlies in that regular season finale, could make things somewhat interesting.
And I know, Brandon, it doesn't count for standings, but this is a good gauge for Payette that tonight on Thursday night, they play Nampa Christian. Right.
Yeah.
And we know what Nampa Christian has already done to 3A SRV teams this year. Win. That's what they've done. So you look at it and you say, you know what? It's a non-conference game. It doesn't count in the standings. But we can learn a lot about our team here in a non-conference game against a really good team that's a level below us, but probably could run through the 3A as well, if we're being honest. But a good chance there to work some stuff out and one that won't hurt you to get ready for that big game on Monday night.
Yeah, that's going to be a huge one, and kind of a similar situation at the 3A where the top two finishers of districts automatically go to state, and that third place team will have a chance to earn their way to state via a play-in game where they will play the second place team from up north. And that's a tough league right now. Timberlake, Kellogg, and Bonners Ferry are all kind of beating up on each other. And so unlike the 2A, where I feel like the third place team from District 3 has the advantage, I'm not sure that if it's Payette, if they have an advantage going against one of those teams from the north. So for Payette, it would behoove them to get one of those top two spots, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if we dab just a little bit in that upper echelon, or of that, the teams from up north, you got Timberlake right now in conference is 8-2, Bonners Ferry 5-3, and Kellogg is 5-3. And Kellogg started off really rough in their, to start the season, but has come on really strong as of late. And in the standings, they're that third team, right? And they, like you said, they've just been kind of beating up on each other. And man, it's going to be tough for them to take down that team, whoever it is. I just think that those guys have been battling, but so have they down here, right? Like, playing teams like Nampa Christian late in the season as a non-conference game. That's a great way to go about it, rather than, that will be a good test for if the third place team happens to be Payette. I don't know. It'll be a good game. It'll be fun to see who actually comes out of that, and who gets that bid to state.
Yeah, that'll be pretty interesting for sure. Let's talk 1A baseball, where this year for the first time they are playing an 8-team bracket. So in 1A baseball, there's only 2 districts: District 2 up north, the White Pine League, and then there's District 3, the Western Idaho Conference. And in years past, they've said, well, 4 teams from each conference is probably too much, so we'll take the top 3. And they've done a 6-team tournament where the 2 district champs get a first round bye. Well, this year they're doing an 8-team tournament, which means there's an extra spot available. I feel pretty good about 3 of the 4 spots: North Star Charter, Glens Ferry, Horseshoe Bend. They all got to state last year, and they all look really strong again this year. That 4th spot, to me, is kind of wide open right now. Probably will come down to Rimrock or Wilder.
Yeah.
You'll see Garden Valley in the standings at 2 and 3. And I never got clarity on how, are they an official member of the conference or not? I do know that Garden Valley and Rockland will have to play a play-in game just to get to districts. Rockland kind of plays as an independent, and then they join District 3 for districts. And I think Garden Valley might be on a similar path where they're not a full-fledged member of the conference, but they'll have a chance to get in. But this is kind of a mess here in the middle and towards the bottom.
Yeah, and we've hit on North Star Charter, right? They phenomenal season last year. They've been rolling through everybody this year. Their lone loss was an out-of-state team. They've beaten – we were just talking about 3As from up north. They've already beaten Kellogg, who's going to be one of those teams in the mix for that bid at state at the 3A level. Took care of them handily, beat Orofino easily, and just rolled through. So they don't need any introduction. But I tell you, who's come on strong the last couple of weeks is Glens Ferry. The Pilots started off rough, 5-0 or 0-5 to start the season. Had a couple losses to Melba, to Wendell, to Gooding, to Declo. Just kind of got, and those are all teams higher than them, right? They're a 1A. Melba, we mentioned, tough. Wendell, tough. Gooding, a 3A school. Declo, 2A school. And then they kind of started hitting their stride, playing some other teams. They knocked off Soda Springs. Then they come back a couple weeks ago and they beat Gooding, right? A team that had really handled them earlier. Gooding beat them 23-7 back in March, and they flipped the script, beat them 10-2, right? So now they're, maybe Glens Ferry coming around, and then they played North Star Charter on Tuesday, or they did play them, and a close matchup there, 13-9. For North Star to give up 9 runs, I don't know if they've given up that many runs in conference play all year. Like, they gave up 2 to Rimrock a couple weeks ago, 5 to Rimrock. Like, I'm being dead serious. No one scored more than 9 on them. Pomeroy did score 9 on them a couple weeks ago, but that's the highest amount that they've given up. You look at the last couple games on the defensive side for North Star. Besides that game, they gave up 3 Division Charter, none to Wilder, none to Horseshoe, 2 to Rimrock, 5 to Rimrock. And you could go down the list and say, hey, maybe Glens Ferry is a team that is right on the footsteps, or right on the doorsteps, I should say, of North Star, and maybe can challenge them. I don't know if they can knock them off. They haven't, obviously, so far. They could not this week, but they're right there, it seems like.
Yeah, they've got a great number 1 pitcher in Parker Martinez. He threw a no-hitter earlier this year. And, of course, Daniel Cormilo for North Star Charter we talked about. He threw a no-hitter this year also. Yeah. So there's good pitching. The conference standings are kind of a mess because of the schedule, right? So many games have gotten wiped out this year, and some aren't getting made up. I think Wilder is going to end up being the only team that played the full 14 conference games against everybody. You're supposed to play everybody twice. So the standings are kind of in flux, and this happened last year as well. But I feel pretty good about saying North Star, Glens Ferry, Horseshoe Bend. And I think that 5th spot, I really do like Wilder. But Rimrock could also push for it, I think. But
yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah, I think Wilder, like you said, I think they had a win against Idaho City, but like you said, Rimrock, it's going to be, Rimrock beat them twice in a row. They had a doubleheader last Thursday. Rimrock won both of those matchups. So like you said, but again, Wilder's played some tough teams this year. They've hung around with some really good teams, and it'll, we'll see what happens when they actually play it there on the field.
Definitely. One last note before we move on to the next, set of softball. We'll move on to softball, but Idaho City, second year as a varsity baseball program. Last year they were kind of vagabonds. They played at the Boise Hawks field a couple times, and then they pretty much played road games, softball too. Well, last Wednesday, North Star Charter came to Idaho City. Idaho City has a field and a facility they can use now, and North Star Charter was the first team to come in and play them, which is cool. I think for Idaho City, that's an advantage because they're kind of tucked away from everybody else in the conference, right?
Yeah, they are. I mean, you got to take the long, windy road to get up there, and it's a beautiful drive. Idaho City is a beautiful place, but yeah, it's a little different, right? You're stuck on that bus. It's kind of like getting to Garden Valley. I mean, it takes some work to get up there, and for them to not travel, that's a big win for them too. Like, think about that. Every time they play somebody, they are going at least an hour and a half to get there. And they have to take that long, windy road, and they don't have to, right? They can, just go straight home right after the game, and that must be nice for them. So hopefully we can see that continue. I know that they deal with, I don't know if anybody else deals with the elements of being in the snow as much as Idaho City, like maybe North Fremont, but I think that their snow melts quicker, and Garden Valley too. But Garden Valley's, I think, goes away. Idaho City, they're up there, and so they're limited on what they can play anyway. But it's good for them to have that available now and be able to use that field there up there in Idaho City.
Yeah, last year I did an article about Idaho City's baseball and softball programs and how they were first starting, and I was talking to their softball coach, Natalie Kulik, and I said, she's from like the Midwest. And I said, how do you end up in Idaho City? And she said, honestly, I looked at the map and saw green. And I said, yeah, let's live there.
I'll go there. Yeah.
She loves, being right around so much green forestry up there in Idaho City.
Oh, so, yeah. No, it's a great drive. And we always, whenever we drive through there's a little place right there by the road that my boys like to get ice cream, but it's a fun little town.
Definitely. All right. 1A softball. Let's take a look real quick at what's going on in the WIC. Notice continuing to look good, 12-1 overall, 10-0 in the league. Greenleaf Friends, though. How about the Grizzlies? They've got kind of co-coaches going, and they have a huge game, Logan, tonight. As we're recording this, they will travel to Notice. Notice won the first game 15-7. A win here by Greenleaf could force a tie at the top of the league standings.
Yeah, Greenleaf, not only Thursday, but Monday, they have two back-to-back games that are going to really tell us everything that we want to know about Greenleaf, I think officially, right? So like you said, they did lose to Notice earlier, but they did last Wednesday, they did beat Glens Ferry, right? 11-10, Glens Ferry, a great softball program. We just got done talking about their baseball. By the way, everything looks nice, baseball and softball at Glens Ferry. When you look at it off the highway, over there on the south side, they are very nice facilities there. I've done some football games there at Glens Ferry, but their facilities they're awesome. But a big win for Idaho City, or not Idaho City, excuse me, for Glens Ferry, for Notice against Glens Ferry, 10-11 last week, and they're going to have a chance to back that up on Monday with a win there.
Sorry, Logan, I swallowed down the wrong pipe. I was having a coughing fit off camera.
No, you're good. I was just mentioning that they're going to be able to follow up their win against Glens Ferry with for Greenleaf, if Greenleaf can beat Glens Ferry again. they beat them by 1, and I think beating them again will really cement their spot in that second spot. But really, you look at their schedule. They've got Garden Valley, Rimrock, and Idaho City after those other two, which I think they'll be able to take care of business against those other teams. They've done well against them so far on the season, except Garden Valley. They haven't played, but they got a doubleheader. But man, you look at it and you say, if you can, they've got 1 loss in conference. Worst I can see is 3. So I think they probably have that second seed wrapped up. Let's say they lose to Notice and lose to Glens Ferry. I think they still went out. And right now, Glens Ferry has those 4 losses in conference. And so, you look at it right now and say, is that second spot Greenleaf's right now?
Yeah. And of course, 3 teams will get to state. So I think Notice, Greenleaf, Glens Ferry.
Yeah, I think those are the 3. Yeah.
And I think most impressive about Greenleaf Friends, Logan, is they're doing this with 10 players. That's it.
Yeah.
10 incredible players. It's remarkable. 2A softball. New, kind of the same deal. New Plymouth continuing to excel. 14-4 overall, 7-0 in the conference. Melba is kind of still within striking distance, and Nampa Christian is having a really outstanding season as well.
Yeah, Melba 6-2, Nampa Christian 5-2 in conference. So they're right there on the heels of New Plymouth. But man, the Pilgrims have just been on a tear this year. I mean, even those 2 teams, they played Nampa Christian on Tuesday and beat them 11-1. So they're on a roll right now, and they have not. They played Melba back in March 29th, beat them 6-1. So. Those 2 teams will meet up next week on Tuesday. Those teams will all play each other. So, New Plymouth will get a chance next week, Tuesday and Thursday, against Melba and Nampa Christian again. But so far, those 2 looking to be the ones to compete with New Plymouth, who's really just kind of run away with it at this point.
Yeah, so kind of an interesting end of the year for Nampa Christian. As you mentioned, they'll play Melba Friday night, New Plymouth next Thursday, a chance to, if they can win out, cause a little chaos. Just like on the baseball side, the top 2 teams at districts will automatically get to go to state, and the 3rd place team will also get a chance to qualify via a play-in game against the 2nd place team from up north. And that would be a very difficult proposition. St. Mary's was one of the best softball teams in the state last year. They have, in my estimation, the best pitcher in 2A softball, Tacey Watkins. She routinely racks up 16, 17, 18 strikeout games and has thrown several no-hitters over the last 2 years. But just as surprising up north this year, so we knew St. Mary's was good, but Orofino also has turned out to be a very solid team. And in fact, they beat St. Mary's last week in the second game of a doubleheader. So no matter which one of those 2 teams is the 2nd place team from up north, it's going to be a very hard road to get through for that 3rd place team from District 3.
Yeah, it'll be tough, whoever it is. Like you said, those 2 teams up north, just a lot of power, a lot of good skill up there. So it'll take a big win. But you know what? We said that during basketball, and guess what? District 3 came through in some of those basketball play-in games, knocking off some traditional power. So you always hope to see the local guys. I guess if you're here in District 3, you root for your conference foes as they go on the road to try and earn a spot. But it's great that we're just having these big games at the end of the season that matter, right? Even like if I look ahead into 3A too, there, baseball, softball, everywhere, there are huge games over the next 7 days. It doesn't matter where you go. And if we look over at move up over to 3A, you look at the standings right now in 3A, Homedale and Weiser tied at 7-1 right now. Those 2 teams did play earlier in the year. That's a game Weiser won, Homedale won 14-13, right? And so they play on Monday, big matchup. But Homedale, they also, they have couple games against Buell for them this weekend. But that's a huge game between those two on Monday night. That game's at Weiser Monday, or Weiser and Homedale. Really, that's for first place, right? That the winner will more than likely secure that first place bid. And I tell you, these two teams are stacked, like with what they've done this year and who they've been able to beat. They've, Weiser, our Homedale, beat 5A Rigby, 4A Homedale, or 4A Twin Falls. They beat Sugar Salem, who's a good squad. Like they haven't beaten Chumps during the non-conference portion of play. You look on the other side, Weiser, what'd they do? Okay, well, they beat 5A Madison. They beat Nampa. They've played very good teams, and you got to think that when it gets to state, that we're going to see those two there, barring a big upset in districts, and that those two might be just on a clash course to be playing each other there in the state championship.
Yeah, and Homedale had that win over Weiser, and then they stubbed their toe against Payette. Payette got Homedale 6-4 last Monday, which has kind of set up this winner take all showdown. So Payette is kind of lurking on the periphery as well, although they did go 0-2 against Weiser, but they only lost to Weiser, 13-12 the first time they played.
Yeah, and you look at them, right? So Payette, the last couple games, they beat Parma on Wednesday. Big. The last two games, they've won by a combined score of 47-9. Like, they're hitting the ball well right now. They're playing good defense in the field, good pitching. Those two big wins against Parma and McCall Donnelly, who, of course, they're not even in last place. Like, they're right below them. McCall Donnelly 3-6, Parma 2-6. Like that they're at the bottom of the league, but they're not the bottom, right? Those are two teams that are involved and giving teams games, and you just look at it and say, I mean, heck, Payette, they beat who did they beat? Sorry, they beat Moscow, right? They beat 4A Moscow. They hung around with Madison. They hung around with Jerome. So you look at it and say, you know what? Let's say Payette. I'm assuming. So it's two bids, right? And then a play-in. And if it's Payette that goes, they've got a great shot at winning that play-in game based on what I've seen from them this year and who they've been able to beat and hanging around and being able to knock off even the top in their conference.
Now, this is the one. So all these play-in games we've talked about so far involve playing the second-place team from up north. And if that were the case, I'd say mark it, because the North at Timberlake is so much better than everybody else. It's not even funny. But in this instance, the third-place team from District 3 would have to play the second-place team from District 4, which is going to be infinitely more difficult. District 4 is all over the place, Logan. Buell is good. Gooding is actually leading the conference. And Filer are the defending 3A state champions. And Filer didn't win their conference last year and then got to state and ran the table. And guess what? Kimberly, the team that's in last place, that was the team everybody said in the preseason was going to be the favorite, and said, you know what? Kimberly's probably going to run the conference for the next 3 or 4 years. So any of those teams are going to be difficult.
I mean, everybody's within like a game and a half of each other. Gooding, Filer, and Buell all with only 3 losses. Kimberly has 5. Who knows what's going to happen over there? And, sometimes that's good. Sometimes it's bad, right? They've been beaten up on each other. They haven't had any easy nights. They know that on any given day, someone can beat me. So you play with that mentality all year. You're prepared for state tournaments. But at the same time, Payette's been playing really good. And if it is Payette who gets that 3rd seed, it'd be a great matchup with that District 4 team.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about possibly having to play the defending state champions from Filer in a play-in game just to get there. It'd be well-earned, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So, this is a Major League Baseball term, but this can apply here. There's going to be some fun pennant races down the stretch here, Logan, this last week.
Yeah. Yeah, we mentioned it a couple minutes ago. A lot of big games right now, like this week. The huge week for softball. I feel like this softball, there's just more on the line right now. From when you look at it, standings wise, there is a lot right now. And 2A baseball has a lot too, right? Between those three squads, Coal Valley, Marsing, and Melba, they are New Plymouth. There's a lot going on, but softball, they're a huge. Every level has a huge implication this week here in District 3.
Yeah, conference deciding games in the next 8 to 10 days, and we'll be back next week to recap it all and get ready for districts. Believe it or not, Logan, how crazy is that?
Yeah, no, it is. How many times do we say that though? I say it all the time that, but you look at it and next week you're going to know where, people are meeting up in districts. The week after that, you're in the middle of it. And then the week after that, it's state tournaments. And it's crazy that we're that close to state tournaments being right around the corner. And, it's going fast, Brandon. I can't believe we are 3 weeks away from being done with the school year, sports for the school year.
Yeah.
It went by quickly, and we'll have a whole summer to be in misery and waiting for the fall sports to kick off.
Yeah, well, we're going to try and do some off-season podcasts as well, where maybe we bring on guests and interview athletes, coaches, that type of thing. So you'll have content. Don't worry, listeners and viewers.
We'll be back.
We're not going away for the summer, even though we'll have something going on almost every week. So until then, stay tuned. Enjoy all of the great competition that's coming up over the next week to 10 days, and we'll be back next week to recap it all on another edition of the Treasure Valley Prepcast. For Logan Green, I'm Brandon Baney, and we'll see you next time on IdahoSports.com.